Greetings, friends around the world. This is Dr. Bob Thiel for the Bible News Prophecy Channel. And today I want to talk about American infanticide. One of the reasons to do this today is today was declared a day of mourning in response to New York's Reproductive Health Act. Basically, people believe that this is going to allow not just early-term abortions, but late-term abortions and even what you would call infanticide. Infanticide bills, if you will, are growing in popularity in the United States, much to the shame of this nation. I'd like to read something from LifeSite News regarding it. The American College of Pediatricians views with dismay, is grieved by, and condemns recent efforts by several states to remove all legal protection from infants prior to, during, and shortly after birth. As in ancient Rome, it is now legal in 2019 New York and soon potentially other states to kill a child through exposure, starvation, and or denial of medical care. Say, well, is this just a New York phenomena? No, actually, yesterday I saw a headline that was, "Worse than New York, radical abortion law will make Illinois the abortion capital of America." So we've got something proposed in Illinois. And talk about Vermont. There's a bill in Vermont. The Vermont bill states, every individual who becomes pregnant has a fundamental right to choose to carry a pregnancy to term, give birth to a child, or have abortion. Further, the bill specifically dehumanizes the unborn, stating, a fertilized egg, embryo, or fetus shall not have independent rights under Vermont law. One of the things that sort of triggered this was some comments from disgraced Virginia Governor Ralph Northam. He made comments essentially indicating that if a baby survives an abortion and it is born, yeah, it's okay to kill it. More or less is what he said. At least that's how people like I and others have interpreted it. Well, in response to this, a Nebraska Senator, Ben Sasse, proposed S11, which is Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act. And he wanted to have a voice vote, figured everybody would just go along for it. But no, it was stopped. It was stopped because it was considered to be an affront to women's health. And in a letter to senators, 17 so-called public health organizations called his bill a dangerous government intrusion into private healthcare decisions. Huh? Infanticide isn't something humans should be involved with. You know, there are creatures like, for example, gray langur monkeys. Now they believe, or they actually practice infanticide. They don't really have beliefs, they don't really have morals. But humans are supposed to have morals. We're not supposed to act worse than monkeys. Something humans should know. Infanticide is wrong. Now, when the abortion debate began in the United States in the late 60s and in the early 70s, the argument kind of was, well, we don't really know when human life begins. Now, that's a false argument because we do know when human life begins, and that is it begins at conception. And actually, at the point of conception, there's a new life. And let me read something regarding what happens at that time. Human life begins in a flash of light as a sperm meets an egg, scientists have shown for the first time after capturing the astonishing fireworks on film. An explosion of tiny sparks erupts from the egg at the exact moment of conception. So it's obvious when life begins, it's at conception. Now, instead of accepting that human life begins at conception, the abortionists decide, let's emphasize that this is not a human. We'll just emphasize it and call it a fetus. Even though, yes, that had been a technical term, but women, when they're pregnant, always felt they had a baby inside. They wouldn't always think it's just a fetus. They don't care. And then the argument was, well, you know, it's not really a human until several weeks after conception. And then they weren't sure when that would be. And then maybe it has a heartbeat, or maybe it has a brain. And then they said, okay, well, abortion should be allowed up until the time where the fetus, as they called it, was viable to live outside the womb. Okay, so they wanted to extend it to later. Then they've said, well, it's okay to kill the baby up until the time it's supposed to be born, when they clearly know it's human. Of course, it's human the whole time. And now, basically, they don't say the baby isn't human, but they say the mother has the right to kill it and it has no rights of itself. this is not a women's rights issue. And particularly, by the way, people say it's a women's health right issue. After the baby is born, it's not inside the mother. It's not affecting the mother's health that way. The mother could have put it up for adoption. Okay. But people say this is good, but it's not. In the book of Isaiah, chapter 5, verse 20, New King James, it says, "Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter." And I'd like to read something from the New Testament. This will be from Romans 1, verse 18. "For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who suppress the truth in unrighteousness." The abortionists have suppressed the truth in unrighteousness. They come with all different kinds of lies and whatever to try to persuade people this is a good thing to do. Now, historically, yes, infanticide has gone on for a long time. But the fact is, so has murder. In Genesis 4, verse 8, it talks about Cain killing Abel. Just because something's gone on for a long time doesn't mean it's a good thing. I went over to Wikipedia yesterday and looked at some things they had, and they talked about the frequent method, if you will, of infanticide in ancient Europe and Asia was simply to abandon the infant to let it die of exposure, or hunger, thirst, or an animal attack, or whatever. And historically, the Greeks considered it barbarous to sacrifice children, but they still allowed the exposure to kids to die, particularly if there was a problem. Aristotle thought allowing your kids to die, if they came out and they weren't quite the way they should look, he thought that was okay. He actually said, "As to exposure of children, let there be a law that no deformed child shall live," based on whatever his definition was. Now, infanticide finally became a capital offense in Roman law in 374 AD, but generally speaking, it wasn't really prosecuted. Now, Wikipedia had something positive to say regarding Judaism, so I'd like to read this. "Judaism prohibits infanticide. Tacitus recorded that the Jews regarded it as a crime to kill any late-born children. Josephus, whose works give an important insight into first century Judaism, wrote, 'God forbids women to cause abortion of what is begotten or to destroy it afterwards.' Now, nearly everybody knows the commandment. I'll read this one from the Old King James, 'Thou shalt not kill.' The Jews knew the Hebrew Scriptures, which we now call the Old Testament, so they knew it was wrong. Now, during Old Testament times, there were people who sacrificed their infants to the false god called Molech. And God did not approve. Let me read from Leviticus chapter 20, starting verse 1, New King James. "Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, 'Again you shall say to the children of Israel, whoever of the children of Israel or the strangers who dwell in Israel, who gives any of his descendants to Molech, he shall surely be put to death. The people of the land shall stone him with stones. I will set my face against that man and will cut him off of the people, because he's given some of his descendants to Molech to defile the sanctuary and profane my holy name. And if the people of the land should in any way hide their eyes from the man when he gives some of his descendants to Molech, and they do not kill him, then I will set my face against the man, against his family, and I will cut him off from his family, and all who prostitute themselves with him to commit harlotry with Molech." So, not only was infanticide not allowed, or giving the sacrifice to Molech, which is what that was, the people weren't supposed to tolerate it. They weren't supposed to tolerate people who did it. And as it says in 1 Kings 11, verse 7, "Molech is the abomination of the people of Ammon." Now, King Josiah did something about this. Starting in verse 10 of 2 Kings 23, it says, "And he defiled Topheth, which is the valley of the son of Hinnom, that no man might make his son or daughter pass through the fire to Molech." Well, passing through the fire meant you put him in Molech's eyes and you die. There's a Jewish writing from the 12th century French Jewish rabbi known as Rashi. Now that stands for Rabbi Shlomo Yishaki. And let me read what he wrote. "Tophet is Molech, which was made of brass, and they heated him from his lower parts, and his hands being stretched out and made hot. They put the child between his hands, and it was burnt. When it vehemently cried out, but the beasts priest beat a drum that the father might not hear the voice of his son and the heart might not be moved. And nowadays, with abortion, they try to make it so you don't hear the pain because it's inside, but the baby feels pain. Abortion is murder, and infanticide is wrong. Murder is sin. Now, the Bible condemns those who shed innocent blood. Deuteronomy 21 verse 8 says, "So you should put away the guilt of innocent blood from among you when you do right in the sight of the Lord." Well, it's not right in the sight of the Lord to allow infanticide. Go to Proverbs chapter 6, starting in verse 16, it says, "These 6 things the Lord hates. Yes, 7 are abomination to him. A proud look, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked plans, feet that are swift to running to evil, a false witness who spreads lies, and one who shows discord among the brethren." They're being false witnesses by saying this is a good thing, it's a women's health issue, a women's rights issue. The baby should have the right to live. Isaiah 59:7. "Their feet run to evil, and they make haste to shed innocent blood. Their thoughts are thoughts of iniquity. Wasting and destruction are in their paths. The way of peace they have not known. There is no justice in their ways. They made themselves crooked paths. Whoever takes that way shall not know peace." And I'll read something from Jeremiah. "Yet your eyes and your heart are for nothing but your covetousness, for shedding innocent blood and practicing oppression and violence." People are coveting, they think that their life is more important than their babies, and they kill them. Babies are innocent. Killing babies is a shedding of innocent blood. The destruction of the United States is coming, and abortion and infanticide is one of the many reasons that's going to be. It's sad that politicians such as U.S. senators wouldn't go out and agree with a voice vote, if you will, to condemn infanticide. Instead, various ones are promoting it. It's becoming to more and more U.S. states. And there's no longer the pretense that it's not a human being, but it is. God condemns those who shed innocent blood. In the United States, more and more want to shed even more innocent blood. And that will not end well for the United States. This is Dr. Bob Thiel for the Bible News Prophecy Channel.